Has this ever happened to you? You're writing an exciting scene between two people, but when one of your characters stares at the other, you realize you can't picture that person at all. Or have you ever written a character in a room and it's just a generic room and none of the details are popping up, so you end up listing off furniture? Being vague in your writing is sometimes effective. It lets your readers fill in the gaps. However, there are other times when your lack of specifics can cause confusion or make the reading experience less visceral. If a reader is picking up your book to be transported to another world or to be immersed in your story, you can't just describe a room as a room or a person with, eyes, brown eyes. This is a problem I struggle with as a writer because I have two weaknesses that cause me to falter. The first weakness is that often I'm unable to picture the complete image in my head. A severe case of this is known as aphantasia. People with aphantasia aren't able to create a mental picture. While you're imagining your story, you might find your mind blind to certain visuals. This is a paralyzing feeling. A common symptom of aphantasia is not being able to recognize someone's face even though you recognize the person's name. This sometimes happens when you're writing. You have a character, but you're unable to imagine a face for this fictional person. The second weakness that causes my writing to suffer is that I lack the vocabulary to fully describe a person, place, or thing. What color is to a painter, vocabulary is to a writer. The more words you know, the more colors you can add to your story. For example, describing a flower as red is not as powerful or specific as describing the flower as vermilion, but it goes beyond color. Describing someone as decrepit is more powerful than just calling someone old. Now that I understand my problems and weaknesses, how do I go about fixing these issues and improving? Well, when I'm writing the first draft, I don't even worry about these details. I don't let the eye color of the characters or the layout of the room or the details of a Chekhov's gun slow me down from getting the story on paper first. After I've completed my second or third draft, and once I'm confident that the story structure is strong and there is a satisfying ending, that's when I'll turn my attention to the details. Once I have the sketch figured out, that's when I'll apply the color. But as I mentioned, this is the part I have trouble with. I have not figured out a foolproof solution, however, I have found a few techniques to help me battle through my lack of mental images and limited vocabulary. The first thing I do is what many artists do. I find references. If I'm writing a character, I pretend I'm a casting agent and find photographs of people, usually actors, models, or celebrities of some sort. If I need to describe the way the character looks, I'll reference these photos to make sure that the image of this character is consistent the whole way through. If I'm creating a setting, I'd go to a location similar to the one in my story to get a sense of how it feels. If I can't travel to such a location because, I write dystopian fantasy, I'd find pictures on Google to show me what the place looks like. It won't be the full experience, but once I can see it in my mind, my imagination can take over from there. As for increasing your vocabulary, there's no quick solution. Learning a new word is like turning on a dimmer switch, not flicking on a light. You need to encounter a word over and over again until it sticks in your head. The best way to increase your exposure is to write down any new words that you are not familiar with. Read the definition and begin incorporating it in your own writing. Don't wait to see it out in the world again. If it's a unique word, it could take months and years before you encounter it again. Use it often so you become more and more familiar. Reading is the best way to find new words, but it's your job to admit you don't know them. Don't just scan past them. Stop and mark them down. I like reading on a Kindle because I don't even need to pull out the dictionary. All I need to do is hover over a word and I'll get a definition of it. Then the word is added to a dictionary for me to reference. As a challenge for each writing session, incorporate one unfamiliar word, a word that you didn't know before you started. It'll go a long way to growing your vocabulary, but learning new words is not something you should rush for the risk of using them incorrectly. A vague description of a character, an item, or a setting makes for a dull reading experience. It's your job as a writer to immerse your readers in a story. When the moment calls for it, make sure you can give them the details they need to visualize the scene clearly in their heads. We all have strengths and weaknesses as creatives, and not being able to fully visualize a whole world in your head is something most of us normal people struggle with, not only people with aphantasia. So don't be so hard on yourself. Identify your weaknesses and slowly strengthen them. Thank you for watching. My name is Elliot. I make videos about writing and the creative process. If that interests you, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and check out these ones right here.